I've got to feel a little bad for President Trump. There's an awful lot of people that claim to be supporters, and they have been supporters. But when he does one thing that they don't like or they don't understand, which is why they don't like it, they turn on him. They act like all of a sudden he's gone bad and the guy's no good anymore. I mean, they'd say the most awful things. They withdraw their support. They don't like him. It's like, well, he's blown it. He's not my president anymore. It's really a sad commentary on the character of the people that are saying such things. One of the greatest things that I'm seeing this on is his relations with foreign countries. They're complaining, I thought he was going to make America great again. I thought he was president of America. What's he doing talking to all these foreign countries? Why did he give money to Argentina? Well, there's something that these people aren't thinking about, and that is Team Biden had us right on the brink of World War III. Our enemies were gathering, which they do anyway when you're the top dog. They've been gathering for a long time. Russia and China have been having war games together for 25 years. But it really metastasized under Biden. And we've got the Islamic problem. People don't like that Trump is talking to Qatar, working over there in Syria, working with the Saudis, trying to be close. The reason why these are all leading Muslim countries. And Muslims are going to be one of the biggest problems. They already are, but they're going to be one of the biggest problems in World War III. Trump is trying to avoid that. He's trying to pull us back from the brink, and we are still on that brink. He has not been successful. And truthfully, I don't believe that he can succeed in this. Trump is trying hard to avoid World War III, and he's avoiding the talk about it. Even as he has forced Europe to start putting back more money to defend themselves with, to build up their own armaments, to increase their armies, to increase their weapon supplies, and to take more responsibility for their own protection. That's all because we can't bear their load during World War III. He hasn't talked about it much lately because of the increasing danger. He has begun to talk about it himself, as we see right here.
I'd like to see the killing stop. 25,000 people died last month, soldiers, mostly soldiers, but some people also where bombs were dropped. But for the most part, 25,000 soldiers died last month. I would love to see it stop. Things like this end up in third world wars. And I told that the other day. I said, everybody keeps playing games like this. You'll end up in a third world war. And we don't want to see that happen.
If there's one thing that mankind has always been reliable for, if there's one thing they've done consistently in all societies from the beginning of time till now, throughout history, we start wars. It's just what we do. The First World War was supposed to be the war to end all wars. It wasn't even really the First World War. There was wars way back in time, a couple thousand years ago, where all of the known world was at war. Truthfully, in World War I and World War II, the whole world wasn't involved. But they're just big. It's the scope of it. It's global. You cross oceans for it. I guess that's what makes the difference for a world war. But we're there now. We are right on the brink of it. Trump is trying to avoid it. There are 5 points that people need to think about when they're assessing Trump and his foreign policies. And they are all based on World War III. Let's just get right to it. Point number 1, those Muslims. That's why he's dealing with the Saudis and Qatar and all these other Muslim countries. You've got to get as many of them on your side. He's giving them something to lose economically. He wants them to get used to the taste of doing business with America, so the national governments, the leaders in those countries, don't want to get their nations involved. They don't want to make alliances with our enemies. Not that they can be trusted. I don't know if they can, but what else is he supposed to do? He's got to try to minimize the number of enemies that we're going to have when World War III does occur, which it will, because they always have. That's why he's dealing with Qatar. That's why he's dealing with the Saudis. People are mad because he gave money to Argentina. People don't realize that China has the One Belt, One Road initiative. That's the largest globalist expansionist program in the history of the world. They're well into it. Conservatives in America hardly even know about it because right-wing media doesn't talk about it. Of course, the left isn't going to because they're in on it. But the Chinese New Silk Road the OBOR program, One Belt, One Road, that has reached deep into South America. They've got ties in Brazil now. The BRICS nations, they call it. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China. They all banded together, and China has used that to help establish this new trade and economic empire that they're trying to build. They've already got their hooks into South America. That's why Trump is trying to sweeten up with Argentina. That's why he's trying to shut down Venezuela. That Maduro down there shouldn't even be president. But he is, and he will tie with China and Russia against us in a heartbeat. We can't have that neighbor just right on the other side of Cuba. We can't have him operating effectively on our doorstep. That's why Trump is doing all of this. It's not because he suddenly cozied up to foreign powers or he wants to be president of the world. It's about protecting America. All of his actions have two concerns: improving America and protecting America. That's what all of this is about. If you can't see that, you're not looking very deep. Trump is worried about World War III. The fact is, in World War III, we're going to have enough problems because we have enemies without borders now. Some of them are here. Some of them just travel around the world and go to England. They go to Europe. They go back to their home countries. They visit some other Muslim pit nation. They pick up weapons. We don't even know how many weapons they've already got stashed in warehouses around America right now. We don't know how many sleeper cells there are. But Trump is aware of this. That's why he's dealing with the foreign countries. He wants all these terror cells to be isolated and independent terror cells. He doesn't want nations behind them. You got to think about that. World War III is not going to be like anything we've seen before because we've already got enemies among us. The rest of the world knows, especially in this day of technology, you can't just storm America's beaches. It's not like in the past where you just flood the borders of a nation with soldiers, fly in and bomb them. That was 80, 85 years ago in World War II. That's how it was then. That is not how it's going to be today. Today, it's going to be technology. It's going to be contaminating water systems. It's going to be knocking out the grid. It's going to be a lot of guerrilla warfare where you don't even know who did the attack in the middle of the night. You're not going to know. It's going to be sneaky stuff. It's going to be causing problems that Americans feel at home because there's nothing to keep them out when they're already here. Trump is aware of that, and that is why he's doing so much work with these foreign countries. Point number two, it kind of leads off of that. We have enemies without countries. How can he stop a war when you can't deal with a country to stop it because a lot of these enemies don't have countries? What about all these globalists that fund all this stuff? We don't even know who or where all of them are. All of them have international footprints. They've got their friends here and there. We don't know what they're doing when they meet with these foreign nations. We don't know what they're doing or what their ties are with China or Russia. Those people aren't going to tell us. But that's why this is point number two. We have enemies without borders. We won't just be fighting countries. This is another reason Trump can't stop World War III, is because there's nobody to deal with, nobody identifiable that you can negotiate with to avoid it. And these people are determined. They're already dead set on breaking us down. You've got to remember, it's just like the left that is working with them, that is operating here, that always has. They've infested all of our universities, our neighborhoods, states and cities. These people are everywhere. Look at Minnesota. Look at Chicago. Look at all of California, Oregon, Washington, Seattle, Portland. Now they've got Miami and New York. We have enemies without borders. They aren't identifiable. It's not like you can say, well, he's Italian, he's going to have the Italian uniform, and we're going to be fighting them. Italy's the enemy. We don't even know who all the enemies are. How is Trump supposed to address this without doing what he can to take whatever possible foreign governments out of the mix? But you can't stop a world war when you have enemies without borders, without countries, and they're already here and they're already determined. Number three, we are so infiltrated. We're infiltrated with people who already know all of our infrastructure. They already know where all the bridges are. 20, 25 years ago, they were catching these foreigners taking pictures of water systems in small towns. They're taking pictures of bridges. They're taking pictures of large buildings in cities, factories. This is well known. We know they're out there. We know they've been doing it. You know how easy it is to take a plane, a small plane like a crop duster, and just fly around some regions dropping poison, like dropping poison in lakes or whatever? I'll guarantee you, the enemies know this. Trump knows this. All of our security knows this. A lot of our security hasn't been working on our side because they were wrapped up in this Team Biden stuff and whoever was behind all of them. Because it was not Team Biden doing what Biden was credited with doing on his watch. He was placed in there so other people could control it. They still haven't identified all of them, and they never will. We can't because they're hidden. It's a shadow government. It's called a shadow government for a reason. It's the deep state, whatever you want to call it, but it is global. And we are heavily infiltrated with it. We have enemies among us who will take out the bridge, who will poison the water supply, who will bomb the power supply. We're too vulnerable in too many ways, and they all know it because we're infiltrated. They're here. They've been working on this for a long time. Not all of the enemies are overseas. The fourth point you got to consider, look what happened in COVID. A little bit of media went out there and created a lot of panic, and people fell for it. And it was conservatives too. I had a lot of conservatives that unfriended me in social media. They got mad at me. They made up stories even, trying to make it sound like they knew somebody that had died, some perfectly healthy person. And that's because they were all buying into this. And they wanted to explain their panic. They wanted to justify their panic by getting on board and saying, well, it's really happening. We just got to be careful. We have to be careful. We have to err on the side of caution. Flatten the curve. That was the message that came out of the Trump administration under Fauci and Pence. They were doing that. But it shows you how easy the media can influence these people. Now, what happens when we do start having these terror attacks inside the country and we're having problems with the foreign countries? When China and Russia are acting up, countries of Europe are getting invaded, Taiwan, Hong Kong, these are at war with China. The Philippines are in trouble. When there's military action going on in other places of the world and we have terrorists acting here, how much bad media, COVID-style media, panic media, will it take before Americans are ready to throw in the towel? You don't have to defeat an army to defeat a nation. You got to remember, in our Revolutionary War, we won because the English people had had enough. The king couldn't keep sending troops. They were going broke over this stuff. And the people of England said, enough is enough. We got to quit sending our young men to die over there. In Vietnam, that ended because all the ruckus on the campuses. First of all, the government took over fighting the war, which they didn't even know how to do. The officials, the administration officials that weren't even related to the war effort, congressmen, they're telling them how to effect a war. Well, how long will it take before those kind of voices say, wait a minute, this is too much. China and Russia are growing in power. They're attacking. We're getting attacked. We got bombs going off in Dayton, Ohio. We can't even go to a shopping mall or a restaurant because they blow up like they do in Israel. How much of that could the American people take? Once they start losing their power or their water supply, how long would it take for a lot of Americans to say, wait, we've got to negotiate a peace. We have to negotiate a peace. Let's end this. It's not worth another life. Let's end this. That's what happens. That's what ends wars. You don't always have to just defeat the military. You have to defeat the will of the people to fight back. That's what happened with the nukes in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The people of Japan said, we can't lose any more cities. We can't do this. This is too bad. The soldiers wanted to keep fighting. The people of the country did not want to. When the people of a country will no longer support a war effort, then that war effort ends. People are ready to negotiate peace. What would be the negotiated peace in America if we start making deals with Russia, China, and God knows who else? What would happen? Would they agree to break America up into 6 pieces? 6 separate countries? They don't want America to continue as America. That's why they've been working so long inside the nation, inside of our government, to make America ungovernable. They want people to think the system we have does not work. It's got to be replaced. Media, in the middle of a war, since they're not on our side anyway, they will be all for breaking America up into different pieces. They'll say, we will have peace and it'll be a lot easier to manage. Your government will be closer to home. They will represent you. We got too big. It was a mess. It didn't work. That's what will happen. That's what will come from media. We saw it work with COVID so well. We saw it work with the Trump election. How many people fell for all that crap? We saw it work with Obama. Everyone started out saying he's not even an American. Media shut that down. Even people on the right, like Glenn Beck, they were mocking Americans for saying Obama should not be president. Glenn Beck was calling them birthers. Mark Levin was calling them birthers. Oh, you've got to let Obama win it. Well, to this day, a lot of people know better. But look at the power of media. We've got to remember that. And that's another reason that Trump cannot avoid World War III, is because media is not going to support Trump in resisting it. They are always going to play to the power of the enemies that they're already in bed with. The fifth reason, one of the most critical and important reasons that Trump isn't going to be able to stop World War III, is because our enemies know that we won't have any effective allies. America's going to be standing alone. Sure, we're going to have some countries that still work with us and hope for the best for us, but who's that going to be? All of this is an attempt to bring down the Western world. That is Australia, all of Europe, and the United States. That is the Western world. We aren't going to have allies effectively helping us from the Western world because of the fact they're going to be busy at home. They're infiltrated worse than us. The rest of the world is talking about World War III, and for some reason, American media is just avoiding it. They spend more time talking about American politics, the clickbait stuff, the Epstein files, things like that. But they don't talk about World War III that the rest of the world is talking about. If you want to hear about it, you've got to follow foreign media because the rest of the world is saying it. Here's an example from a large network out of India. This is the Secretary General of NATO, a powerful world figure speaking to the entire world. American media did not cover it. But here's what the Secretary General of NATO had to say about a world war.
We need to be ready, because at the end of this first quarter of the 21st century, conflicts are no longer fought at arm's length. Conflict is at our door. Russia has brought war back to Europe, and we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured.
So why is this war escalating? Because while everyone wants peace, they don't want the same peace. The US wants closure before this becomes an election year liability. Europe wants a deal that stops Russian aggression. Ukraine wants justice and security guarantees. Russia wants territory it couldn't win on the battlefield. So everyone says peace, but the maps in their heads do not match. And it won't change anytime soon. So that's the real question tonight, perhaps. Are we watching a peace process begin or a new war take shape?
We aren't going to have allies effectively helping us from the Western world because of the fact they're going to be busy at home. They're infiltrated worse than us. They were infiltrated first. They're closer to China. They're closer to Russia. They're going to have a lot of problems right there at home. They aren't going to be able to spare troops to come over here and help us. We're going to have it on the streets here. Now, everybody knows, it's like Hirohito said, you can't invade America because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. Well, that might be true, but who are all those guns going to be shooting at when the bombs are going off in the middle of the night? Nobody knows who planted them. People aren't going to walk down the streets looking for somebody to guess they're an enemy and start shooting them. Those guns are useless without an identified target. You can't just guess. I mean, who would people go out and shoot with all of these American guns when you cannot see your enemy? When a bridge over the Mississippi blows up in the middle of the night, do you know how much trade that would screw up for years? Many years. What if a couple of bridges are lost? You cut the country in half. That's what they did during the Civil War. They used the Mississippi River to cut the country in half. Transportation is still critical. Once bridges start blowing up, it takes a long time to replace bridges. You won't even know who did it. We will have problems with the internet and communications. China and Russia both claim they can take out satellites. What if they can't? All of a sudden, there's no cell phones. We won't even know who did it. But you can't run businesses in America today without the internet. I was in a city of about 60,000 people, and I saw them lose their internet on a Tuesday morning, about 10 o'clock in the morning. There's a technical malfunction, wiped out the internet for the whole town. Mountain City. By noon, all the businesses were closed. You could not sell gas because they're all chain gas stations. They're all linked to corporate. Everything is linked to corporate. The grocery stores, everybody had to shut down. The only places that were able to stay open was little mom and pop shops. The places that just isolated on their own computer systems, and they didn't need the internet. You can't even run a post office now without the internet. They don't have a backup plan for doing it manually the way we used to do, and we don't even have the personnel in place that could do it. America shuts down without the internet. All of our enemies know this. And we won't know who is doing it. If we get a virus into something, we don't know if it was Iran that did it, North Korea. The problem is when you start investigating this stuff, they can make it look like the attack came from somewhere that it didn't come from. You will never know. How long do you investigate that before you get the next one? Our enemies know this. They know that this is a great vulnerability, and they're not scared of us. If you stop and look at it, Russia and China are going ahead with their plans in spite of the fact Trump promised he was going to end Ukraine war as soon as he got back into office, and he tried. He's done everything he could. He thought at some point Russia would back down over the economic sanctions and over the fact that Ukraine had the weapons that they could resist them, they could stop them in their tracks. Sure, Russia stopped in their tracks, and they're sitting there just happy. It's like, we're not going anywhere. Trump says, yeah, you must leave. No, they just told him to take a flying leap. They aren't listening to him. China isn't listening to him. We do not have the trade deals that Trump wanted to get with China. Over all the tariffs, they've come a little ways. They're playing their game. They're tweaking it here and there. Russia does the same thing. All right, we'll talk. Let's talk some more. Okay, give me a little here. Give me a little there. We'll do this and that. They never keep their word. They know they don't have to. They are not stepping down. They have national pride too. They have pride in their military. They have their own goals. And they aren't listening to Trump. He is not the president of the world. Unfortunately, he can't control what these enemy nations do. And when you're the top dog, everybody is nipping at your heels, and they are not going to quit. You got to consider that Putin and Xi are two largest enemy world leaders. These guys are getting old. They want a legacy. They don't want their legacy being collapsed under the shadow of Trump. They want their legacy to be growth and restoration of the power of their individual empires. They want to carve up the world under them. They're getting old. They have to be doing it. If they don't do something soon, they're going to be too old to execute a war. It will pass to someone else, and they will die as failures. Xi and Putin have no intention of dying as failures, and that is another reason Trump can't stop World War III, because the clock is running on those boys, and they know it. That's why they continue to make the steps. That's why they continue to support other countries that make the steps. And that is why World War III is not going to be avoidable. People need to think about this. And when you start looking at what Trump is doing with all these foreign nations, whether it's the Muslim nations, whether it's Greenland, he really wants Greenland, and that's because of strategic value over the oil reserves, the communications, airplane flights, all of this through Greenland, over Greenland, against Russia, and in defense of Europe, mutual defense. Greenland is very important for those reasons. He's not doing this just because, hey, I want an island full of ice. The world is all building toward World War III. The goal is to make America ungovernable as possible, which they're doing right now with all these psycho lefties, and weaken us so that people in America do not have the will to fight when a war starts. We've been comfortable for a long time. We don't know how much fortitude Americans will have for a long-term war. When people have to sacrifice, when people have to go without all the food they're used to in the grocery stores, when people start getting rations for fuel, when people have to live through winter months without fuel, think about it. It's not going to be easy, but it doesn't take very much loss of technology to set us right back to the year 1900 or before. It's not likely he's going to be able to avoid World War III. It's going to happen. That's what mankind always does. But just consider this when you see what Trump is doing. Don't be so critical. He's doing everything that he can. We got to get this right, my friends, and if we do, maybe God will continue to bless this great country of ours. Thanks for listening.